chopsticks and thanked him for the dinner. In the picture, the blonde smiled sarcastically and asked him if he had never tried beef. The protagonist at that moment widened his eyes in shock. At that moment, this blonde looked down on the guy and smiled sarcastically. He saw that mocking grin of the blonde because he had seen those faces all his life. He had the feeling that he was being fed like a stray dog and he was doing a good deed just for himself. At that moment, tears appeared in Lloyd's stunned eyes and they blurred his vision. He clenched his lips with pain in his soul because he felt like a dirty dog that was picked up on the street. With tears in his eyes, he smiled happily because he had never tasted such a deliciousness in his life. At that moment, his friend, like an angel, opened his arms and was all glowing. Through his tears, the main character began to smile happily because he wanted to ask for more. At that moment, his friend smiled back and showed 3 fingers, thus expressing that he could have more. At that moment, they happily ran after each other around the city because he had become his only friend. Now Lloyd began to smile bloodthirstily with all 32 teeth and tried to understand what friendship is because everything is good as long as he has meat. He immediately began to take pieces of meat out of his backpack. The hungry elf opened her eyes, seeing this glow like a piece of meat. At this time, Lloyd held out a raw piece of meat on the tongs. At this time, Muira with tears in her eyes and stuffed cheeks looked at the piece of meat. She immediately covered her mouth from such a delicacy. The other elves also tried this meat with tears in their eyes and stuffed cheeks. The commander immediately extended his hand and yet accepted his conditions, forgetting about the approval of the elders, and ordered her guys to feed her meat. The elves of the Eternal Radiance Forest, who had not contacted other tribes for 500 years, signed an agreement with the people from the Frontier estate. The main character, along with a squad of elves and a guard, entered the city. In the picture, an angry knight walked nearby and did not understand why he needed to fight if meat would solve everything. All the inhabitants of the city closely watched the detachment of elves that entered and Mr. Lloyd, who were trying to figure out who he would bring next time. At this time, Muira looked around in bewilderment.